Hello and welcome to the third ever episode of ReSync, an Assassin's Creed podcast. I'm your host, Landon, joining with my co-host, Lucas.
That's me.
That's him. We've gotten pretty used to this now.
Yeah. As you can tell, this is natural.
How it is, you know? This is 3 episodes in. It's pretty much, we haven't changed a thing, you know? Get with the program by now. But this has been sequence 3 of Assassin's Creed. We're getting really into the nitty-gritty, the bones of it all. We got a main sense of the gameplay loop last sequence, but now, you know, we've got some expansion on that concept. Lucas, what are your overall thoughts? How you feeling?
I like the progression of the game so far, just as far as like how abilities go.
Right.
Stuff like I feel like I'm starting to feel more like an assassin again.
Right.
Getting back into the flow of things, and even me back with like just as a person, my controller skills are getting a lot better in the game just because I haven't played a game like that on a controller in so long.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it is important to point out that this is an action-adventure game by default. Like, that is kind of the genre. It is not an RPG. However, I think, even though, like, I don't think Assassin's Creed was conceived as an RPG, it's always been an action-adventure game that then got expanded out into the RPG format. There's a lot of RPG elements in this game for a game that's not an RPG. I'm just saying, I think the way that both the story, the characters, the skills, the overall progression system in the game, even though you don't have a skill tree or rotating weapons, the way they handle progression in both a gameplay sense and in a story sense just reeks of RPG goodness. I'm just saying, I'm throwing that out there.
I don't disagree with that statement.
Yeah, I think they already had the beginnings. That's why I think that the RPG genre does work for Assassin's Creed, and you can still kind of have the roots of the franchise even if you go into a different genre. I'm not saying that they always did this, but I'm saying it can work, and I think it has worked in certain entries in the franchise, and then sometimes it didn't. But we'll get to it. But yeah, no, I 100% agree, and we had some good stuff this sequence.
Oh yeah.
But before we dig deep into it, last week's trivia question. I asked y'all what an Arab marketplace is. This was mentioned multiple times in sequence 2, was actually mentioned again here in sequence 3. So my real completionists will be able to easily say that it's a souk. S-O-U-K.
Souk.
Souk. It's a souk.
Yep.
So that was a trivia question. Stay tuned for this week's trivia question. Getting into the third sequence, we start off with Al-Mualim congratulating Altair back at Masyaf for the first assassination we had in Damascus last week.
He's like, good job.
Yep. Where Altair kind of questions him a little bit. He's like, hey boss, so this dude, like, really thought he was a good guy? What's up with that, bro? Where Mualim is basically like, I don't need to tell you shit. So here's the thing. You've kind of fucked over this brotherhood. So we're on a need-to-know basis. Don't worry about it. Basically, like, why don't you trust me? Kind of, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the men in this game are very toxic. Very toxic men. We've talked about it before, but, they just be swinging their dicks around constantly.
A little sus.
It's a little sus. But anyway, he gets you a rank back, so you get the short blade, as well as the ability to counter kill, which means this game's combat is now finally playable.
Yeah.
It is great. How you feel about that counter kill, bud?
It made it made so much. Like I feel like I take on the world with the counter kill.
Yep. Counter kill, it makes everything feel satisfying. It makes for a constant, steady flow of animations where you are like still experiencing gameplay, but it makes it so much more cinematic. It makes the fights look cooler.
Yeah.
Between that and then just the final combo kills, like those two working in tandem just make the fights so much more enjoyable, so much more fun to play, and it makes you just a much stronger player in general.
And it makes the difficulty significantly less hard.
100%. It is much more now about skill than it is anything else.
Yeah.
Because being able to pull off, like, just getting the timing down, you can be essentially a master assassin at this point, from this point on. And they pretty much give you most of the keys to the castle at this point. And you're just
you can counterattack with your sword and your short blade.
Yeah. Because you used, I believe so. You used the short blade much more than I did this sequence. How did you feel about that?
So, I liked the short blade because I felt a lot more like an assassin doing it. Because he holds it like backwards style when he does it. So he's just like slice, and it's all like smooth, kind of like just assassin-y feeling movements.
Right.
And a lot of the counter kill animations I liked more than the sword counter kill animations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And part of the reason that I really like the podcast format for these types of playthroughs is for things like that. So for instance, last week you were talking about how you really like to grab the enemies and like throw them around. I wasn't doing that a whole lot in sequence 2. So in this sequence, I specifically was going for more grabs, and it was really helping with the combat a lot. And in the same regard, you're over here talking about how you were using the short blade more. And so now I'm thinking about like next week for sequence 4 about trying to like stick more with like the short blade, because I do like the assassin's aspect. Like I think you bring up very good points. And it's one of those things where I just think it's interesting to talk about how people play games, especially when it comes to like bigger open world games. But even with something like this, there's enough diversity in gameplay mechanics that you can learn off of just actively talking with each other. And kind of, I think it helps enrich the experience, because then you get a more diverse play style in and different things like that. It's interesting to hear different perspectives about what happens in certain games. But yeah, so
I also like hearing what we role play versus like what I role play for the character versus what you role play for the character.
Right.
Like I was talking earlier, I was just like I like to just travel through on my horse and just be red the whole time with it blinking at me and them just yelling at me. And Landon's a sneaky boy.
Yeah, I'm over here blending. Although it was significantly harder this episode. I'm gonna be honest. Like there were a few instances in the kingdom. And Ocker specifically. Jerusalem, I did pretty well for myself. But in Ocker, I was getting into fights over and over and over and over and over again. But I was a badass bitch by that point, so it didn't matter. And I'm not going to lie, that's kind of why I got a little cocky with it. Like, there were definitely some fights I didn't need to do and definitely could have avoided. But I was like, I'll give it a shot. If it fails, it fails. And then, oh no, I'm caught. Darn. And just go to work, you know? But I generally try to follow more stealth because I feel like that's the assassin's way, which after thinking more about the past few sequences and as I was playing today, I really started, because I noticed it when going over last week's footage. I was when I started thinking about it. So I'm like, when I play this sequence, I'm going to think about it. For a game about like assassinations and stealth, no nighttime.
Oh, yeah.
It's day.
It's the whole time.
Now, they fixed that in Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 2 has, like, nighttime sequences and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're doing all this shit in broad daylight. And I'm not saying there aren't assassins in the daytime.
It's almost kind of more badass if you think about it.
True.
It's just, like, right in their faces.
Right. But, like, again, it's a game about assassins.
Yeah.
And you got no nighttime scenes here. This is all broad daylight. Like, don't you think the cover of night, like, even just for, like, one of the assassinations, you know? Like, but no, they're always just in broad daylight. But, you know, it's interesting. Something to point out. Just something I never really thought about with this game. But it's all daylight sequences. And I'm like, is that an engine thing? Like, was there some sort of technological reason why they didn't want to do night scenes? But they did fix it into.
Maybe they just couldn't get the lighting down.
Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, you get sent to Acre and Jerusalem for 2 targets. Now, Lucas and I approached it in opposite order, so we're going to go with the timeline on this one. So we're going to Acre first. That's what we'll be talking about first, and then we'll get over to Jerusalem. He played the opposite way. I played by the timeline because I'm a smart human being.
Basically, Jerusalem sounded cooler to me, so I went there.
And I do want to say, you can play them in either order. They're not meant to just be like one after the other. But I'm really trying to go for the RPG purist run. So I went with the sequence timeline. And so we'll go ahead with that. But again, if you play Jerusalem first, it's fine. Like, you don't gain or lose anything based off of that. But so you get to Acre, and this is where I learned that the first guy's name in Damascus his name's not Rafik. Rafik is a job title, because when he goes to the Assassin's Bureau in Acre, he introduced, like, he calls him Rafik, which is the same name that the guy in Damascus had. So they are all Rafiks. So we actually only know Malik's name, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But those other two, to my knowledge, at least at this point, we don't know their actual names. They're just the Rafik.
Yeah, because I remember trying to listen for it, and I didn't get it. I was like, what?
Yeah, Altair references him as the Rafik at one point.
Okay.
But we get introduced to a new investigation mission when we go here. The Informant. Did you get any of these in either of the spots?
Is that like where you talk to like an assassin?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I did do that.
And there are actually two main types of this. One I like better than the other. So one of them is a time trial where you have to go do a bunch of flags. They're essentially parkour challenges. They're not super hard. The only thing that sucks about them is that, like I said, the physics of the parkour not perfect. Yeah. And so sometimes it will throw you off, and it really sucks.
It's really
However, I have found that the best way to take on these challenges is not to try to speedrun it, because honestly, it gives you plenty of time. Just focus on making sure that you're committing to whatever jump you're making, because if you're trying to run it fast and you're like, your stick moves off or something like that, you'll just veer off in the wrong direction and it'll completely screw up your run. Just take it slow and just go for it, because it makes it a lot easier. Those ones I don't like all that much. But the other type of informant mission is where you have to assassinate targets. And this is the one type of mission that actually has some meaningful progression throughout the game, because as you go through deeper sequences, they will add on, because like the first one here in Acre, you just have to assassinate one guy, and it has to be stealthily. You don't have to engage in combat. You just have to do one guy. And then in Jerusalem, there's one where you kill two. And then it'll continue to like add on as like you get further and further in the game. The rest of the others are just kind of like, how do you iterate? Like, you have to pick up two guys, you know, like stuff like that. Like, there's not really much that you can add on to, but this is the one where they actually add some depth to. I would argue the other Informant does kind of a little bit too, because of different parkour challenges, but like, this one's the most straightforward. Like, you progress through the game, you have to do more things. And so, for that reason, I like it, because it's the least bland out of all the other investigation missions. But, canonically, first, you talk to this informant who tells you that your target, Garnier, is hiding inside a fortress. So, he's a doctor tending to patients inside of this fortress, we have learned. So then you interrogate a citizen to reveal that Garnier is distracted while tending to his patients. Now, here's the thing. Did you do this one where you interrogated the guy, and he specifically says that he was forced to say these things by Garnier? Like, he's saying he's one of those guys that you have to beat the shit out of to interrogate.
I did the one interrogation that was at the very beginning of like right when you walk and get through the gates, basically.
I think there's only one. Yeah, there's only one interrogation.
Okay, so I probably did that one then.
But like, bro, Altair kills him when he literally explains that I have no loyalty to Garnier whatsoever. I'm being forced against my will to say these things. Why the fuck did Altair kill him? It's so mean.
I don't know, but he's like a Boy Scout. Leave no trace.
No, literally. Like, I could understand, but like, knock him out or something. You didn't have to kill him, bro. Bro was being forced to say this shit. Like, imagine you just work at, like, a really shitty company, and then a guy comes in and is like, I'm gonna kill the CEO. And he's like, oh, okay, sure. Well, like, here, let me help you out. And then he's like, all right, now fuck you. And then he just kills you, bro. Like, what the fuck? I'll tell you, like, that bro did not deserve to die. I saw that. I watched that. I was like,
Like,
no,
what the
fuck? No, justice for that dude. Justice for the citizen in Ocker. Ubisoft, shame on you. Shame on you. That's how I feel. But anyway, next up, you can pickpocket a letter connecting Garnier to Tamir, aka our first assassination that we did last week, and the target in Jerusalem, who we don't know yet, unless you played Jerusalem first. That is technically the one thing that changes. You'll know who the other one is if you do Jerusalem first. But there's a connection between them. And so this kind of like reaffirms like Al-Mualim like sending you to go after these people. Like they aren't just like 9 random cherry picked people. These are seemingly connected people in some sort of organization. Just more like affirmation of that. Next, you can pickpocket these plans that are detailing chandeliers above the hospital. So, potential assassination help, climb up on the chandeliers. Though I used a different method. I'll be curious to hear how you did as well. But you can also eavesdrop that a roof guard is absent. So, going in through the roof may be a potential idea. As one of the things about Ocker as well, because now we're getting introduced, there's a lot more rooftop guards. There weren't any rooftop guards in Damascus, but now we've got guards on the roof, which can be kind of annoying because a lot of times you can get on the roofs to escape people, but now the people have come to the roofs.
And then they shoot you.
Yeah.
With fucking arrows, and then you gotta outrun the arrows. And if you're a good enough climber, you can actually juke the arrows.
Yeah. And so, you know, those are introduced. That's a fun time. But apparently, one of them's off duty. So that's one less to worry about.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
And then finally, another informant can tell you that only scholars and guards can enter the fortress. So you can't just waltz in there, otherwise you're going to be in trouble and you're not going to be able to get in. So you do have to be a little sneakier about this assassination. So, after learning all these things, do you know which ones you did off the top of your head?
So, I was going. My first plan is there was a citizen to save right outside.
Right.
I saved him.
Right.
I got the scholars.
Right.
But like the animation, I was talking to the guy. Within that time frame, another guard walked up and initiated combat again, and then all the scholars ran away. So they were gone, and I was like, "Gosh, dang it!"
So did you not go all the way inside the fortress?
Well, I didn't. Well, I that was how I was gonna get into the fortress.
Yeah.
But by the time I killed killed the guys and like saved the citizen, I was like on the citizen, and the like people already showed up because they were talking to him. Basically, right when that cutscene ended, another guard was like, "Hey," and then he started fighting me. But it made those monks run away, so I couldn't blend with them anymore because they were gone. So then I ended up using the rooftop. Actually, I climbed up to the top and I killed everybody up there, and then I climbed in through the middle and just dropped down. And then am I going all the way?
Yeah. What'd you do next? Well, first, I guess once you get in there, inside the fortress, a patient is caught escaping. And then spouting that Garnier's a fraud, and he's torturing the sick, doing these crazy experiments. And then Garnier is essentially, he comes out and he's like, "Oh, my child, you're sick. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again." And has the guards take him back to his quarters. But then he does something first to ensure he doesn't escape again. What that is the trivia question this week, because I gotta give somebody. I mean, you guys can't seem to answer any of my trivia questions, so this one's just a gimme. If you don't get this right, I don't think this podcast is for you. But what does he do to keep them from escaping once more? Let me know down in the comments or at my socials at PandaMaster CC, baby. So, How'd you assassinate him? What's the move?
All right. So basically, I was gonna go up on the rafters, and I climbed up there, and I started walking around, and then I started getting like blinked at a bunch of times, and I couldn't like find a really like sneaky path over there without them seeing me.
Right.
So I ended up actually using the monks inside, and I literally just pressed A, and I put my controller down, and I just like wait until I was like right next to him, and I hopped out of it. I was like, ha! And I killed him.
Yep. That's not too far off from what I did. So I didn't enter through the rooftop. I entered with the scholars from the outside.
The ones that
and
you
then,
scare off.
yeah. And then I also used them again after the cutscene to then get up close with him and then do the exact same thing. So scholars were the MVPs of this assassination.
Yes, thanks, scholars.
But after assassinating him, Garnier argues that his experimenting was for the greater good and that the piece of Eden helped his work before the assassins stole it.
Yeah.
So it turns out that this thing that we were sent to recover in the very first sequence of the game was actually a piece of Eden. And so
means.
what that is, Lord only knows, because we don't know shit.
No idea, man.
No idea, but first hearing of this piece of Eden stuff seems important, I would wager.
Pay attention when you hear that word.
But Altair questions the Rafik afterwards, basically being like, Garnier, he's over here acting like he's a good guy. What's going on with that? But the Rafik basically brushes it off and is like, bro,
like, I don't want to hear about it. And he's like, forget about it. He's like, I already did.
He's like, it's whatever. Yeah, fuck, no. Who gives a shit? Whatever. It's just another assassination. Go home, dude.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Go back to Papa Aluim.
Yeah. And when you do that, you basically ask him the exact same shit, being like, oh, these guys kind of act like they're not bad guys.
Yeah, I think they're doing the right thing here, Dad.
Like, what's going on? And so that is when Al-Mualim kind of realizes... Al-Mualim.
That just cracks me up.
This is when he kind of realizes he has to give Altair a little bit of some crumbs to some stuff because he's asking a lot of questions. So he reveals that Garnier was drugging patients to get them to be loyal, essentially, and just says that they have them on all these drugs. But also mentions that the assassins are accused of that. Now here's the thing. I could be overthinking this, but I don't think I am. Why does he specifically mention that the assassins are told, like they say that the assassins are drugging their Brotherhood members to be loyal, and he's like, but that's obviously not true. But directly after saying, like, making a baseless accusation that Garnier was drugging patients, it's interesting. That's all I'm saying. So it's like, because this is the first time that Al-Mualim is giving us any sort of, I guess, further context to our assassinations, and he explicitly follows it up by saying, yeah, our enemies say bullshit about us, just like what I just told you, actually. Coincidentally, the exact thing that I'm telling you right now, our enemies use as bullshit. But, like, we don't. Like, it was interesting. It's just interesting. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Very sussy baka behavior, in my eyes. But maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. But you are restored another rank. You are now given your throwing knives and the ability to tackle people. So, yeah, fun times. How are you feeling? Have you utilized the tackle much?
I have not utilized it.
You have not?
Yeah.
So, in most playthroughs, I will actually tackle the Jerusalem target. That's one of my favorite things to do. But I didn't do it this time. I actually have not utilized the tackle in this current playthrough. It's all right. It's all right. I mean, there's not too many times that you're actively chasing someone, but when you do, it's nice. But you get that, but the throwing knives.
Throwing knives are nice.
That's what we're really here for. The kit is completed. How are you feeling about it?
Feeling like an assassin, bro.
You got your tools.
Be able to just like stealthily throw a knife and not have to worry about any like detection or counteracting or stabby stab. It's nice.
Yeah, just a little. Which we also saw a little bit more of, because one thing I haven't talked about this week is that in the time between last week's episode, we got our first official gameplay for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, I know we're talking about the first Assassin's Creed right now, and that is the main focus, but, Lucas and I actually co-streamed it together. Yeah. And so we live reacted to that, and it is interesting seeing the comparison between this game from 14 years ago almost and Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is very different. It's going more stylish. It's still in the RPG realm. But it is interesting because I think Nawe's character incorporates a lot of old classic Assassin's Creed with her kunai and her blade. And obviously they made a lot of enhancements. And like it plays, oh my lord, I cannot wait to play as Nawe. I'm not gonna lie, Yasuke. Honestly, Assassin's Creed Shadows to me feels like a blend of both eras of Assassin's Creed. I think Nawe is the action adventure, like classic assassin essentially, and then Yasuke is the RPG because in the RPGs you can then have different subsets of weapons and all these different weapon classes and things like that, and Yasuke has that with like the heavy weapons and the katana and the musket. He has 3 different types of weapons, right? Whereas Nawe is simply, she's got her kunai, she's got her like assassin, like her throwing knives, stuff like that. She represents the classic Assassin's Creed, and then Yasuke kind of represents this now RPG era that they're concluding. And it's a nice blend of the two, and I think people aren't talking enough about that. And I'm very excited to see what they do with it.
It'll be awesome.
But, little side thing aside, very excited about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm not 100% convinced that it's like Return of Peak Assassin's Creed or whatever, but nothing's disappointed me so far.
It's the most that I've been excited about a Assassin's Creed game in I don't know how long, forever. Yeah. Actually, probably since Odyssey, because I thought Odyssey was going to be really good, but it wasn't that good.
Yeah, Lucas is a big fat hater, and when we get to Odyssey, his mind's going to be blown by how good it actually is. But yeah, we'll get there, because man really was out here and read the entire Percy Jackson series and is trying to say that Odyssey's not good. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't listen to his crazy talk. When we get to Odyssey, he will be a reformed man. I promise you all. So, Odyssey fans, do not fear. He will be reformed, whether by choice or not by choice. It'll happen. He'll be a good citizen, I promise. But you get to head to Jerusalem and meet the Rafik of the Assassin's Bureau there, who just so happens to be Malik, the guy whose brother you killed, who's now lost an arm as a result of the events of Sequence 1, and that's why he's been basically demoted to desk jockey.
Our bad.
So he's not happy to see you.
No, he's angry.
I essentially equate the relationships between the Rafiks in the Assassin's Bureau and Altair as like, in Damascus, you have the really chill Rafik who just honestly is like a fan of yours and is just super nice and honestly just a really good dude.
Yeah.
And then you have Aker, where the guy's just kind of neutral. He's not bad. He's not good. He's not gonna like, stroke your ego, and he's not gonna talk shit. He's just kind of there. And then there's Malik, who actively hates you and wants to see you fail at every twist and turn. Like, you've got the whole gambit between the 3 cities. You have good, neutral, and just straight evil. Like, Malik has nothing. Like, literally is just waiting for you to slip.
Yeah.
And honestly, he's pretty justified in doing that. It makes sense.
I don't disagree with Malik. He didn't want to give me any information. He's kind of just like, screw you. But then he still gave you information anyways. I don't know if I would have been nice enough.
Right? You feel like, fuck you. But, So it is interesting to see that dynamic across the three cities, and I do like the differentiation that it's not just some random NPC you talk to.
Yeah, it has like the same voice line.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate the detail there. It's just a nice little touch. But canonically, first, you can talk to an informant who reveals that Talal is in the north sector of the city. That one I thought was pretty dumb because we already knew he was in the north sector. Felt pretty useless, but I like the informant missions in general, so that's why I'm cool with it. Next, you can interrogate a citizen to reveal that Talal keeps slaves in a warehouse somewhere in this north sector.
Whoa.
So there's some sort of warehouse shenanigans going about, which you can learn more about by pickpocketing a map with the location of all of Talal's guards. So that's pretty nifty. And then you can pickpocket information on a souk, which we all know is an Arab marketplace, that Talal will hide in if he's discovered. So we've got his backup. We've got his plans. We've got his backup plans. I mean, bro's feeding us everything. We got all the juice. You can see another informant who will reveal that Talal's guards will sacrifice themselves to protect him. He has very, very loyal guards. So, okay, a little sketch. And then finally, you can eavesdrop on some citizens talking about Talal's skills with a bow. So bro's a little Legolas.
Apparently he's really good.
Yeah. So, do you remember the types of missions you took on this time?
Pretty sure I did all of them this time.
Oh yeah, you said you did complete them. So yeah, you got the whole story. Hell yeah. So Malik will begrudgingly give you Al-Mualim's blessing once you have done the appropriate amount
even
of
though you did
investigations.
all of the investigations, he's still reluctant. He's like,
it's like, I guess, whatever.
He's like, it wasn't enough, but it'll do.
Right? And so the next day, you go to try to get Talal, except Talal has read you like a damn book, and everything was placed. So he set up a trap for Altair after hearing about the previous assassinations he's done, either with Tamir or Tamir and Garnier, depending on which he did first. So bro sets a trap.
Which, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't want to go through that door that like they have there. Like I was trying to find every other entrance because I was like, this is why are you just walking in this door? Like it's no big deal. You're like trying to assassinate this guy,
right?
And then I was like, okay, that's the only entrance I can find, so here I go.
Yup. So you spring Talal's trap, sicking his guards on you while he goes and escapes. Now I'm curious, how'd you handle this part, bud?
I killed them all.
See, I ran. I said, peace out. I'm not here for y'all. And just zipped past all of them.
I killed 3 people with the throw into that collapsible thing.
Oh, right.
And then I killed the other 2, and I climbed that ladder, and I killed that bow guy. And then after when I was running, I actually did a wrong jump. And I fell all the way down to the floor, and he was still on the roofs. But it was conveniently, I was running, and he basically just jumped right down to me. Like, he was just coming down from the rooftops, and that's where I was. So I just bounced.
So, I mean, the Talal chase, mine wasn't too far off from that either. I'm honestly might have done the exact same thing, because I also fell down to the ground, and then that was conveniently not long before he was getting off the rooftops anyway. And so, yeah. But I accidentally still had my sword out instead of the hidden blade. So when I first caught up to him, I just did a weird like slash at his back, and he was basically like, "What the fuck, man?" And then I was like, "Wrong one." Switched to the blade, and then I did the whole like, it's like that's not the script, bro. But yeah, so couple hiccups here and there, but we got through it. And so after assassinating him, Talal will mention a brotherhood working together in the region,
but you're
also
in a brotherhood.
defending his actions. This is one of the parallels I like. So obviously we know that there are people working together at this point. It's been referenced a couple times at this point, but going back to my whole like theory about Al-Mualim mentioning that Garnier was drugging people and that the assassins are drugging people, drawing parallels between us and our enemies, and now the enemies even calling themselves a brotherhood. Like we don't know too much about the people that we're going after, but one thing is it is being subtly hinted at multiple times that these people we're going after aren't that dissimilar to us. And we're also seeing that in the present day, where with Vidic's talks with Desmond about how Abstergo and the assassins both want the same thing. They're just going about it in different ways. And we're seeing a lot of parallels with that here, which I really like. And I like how it's not being shoved in your face. It's all just like through very subtle dialogue and little things that you can catch here and there. So it's something I appreciate.
Yes.
And that's the end of sequence 3. You get pulled out of the Animus because it overheats.
Too hot.
It's too hot, and Vidic's all pissy about it, but the day...
Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, he's all pissy and walks away. Where a lot of stuff can happen.
A lot of
stuff can happen here. So, talking to Lucy will explain to Desmond that she maintains the Animus and defends Vidic. Because Desmond's like, man, he's a piece of shit, which he is. And she's just like, no, he's not that bad. He saved my life.
Yeah.
Which you can then inquire more about. And apparently Vidic saved her life after she was being ousted by the scientific community and offered her a job. But essentially she had to like live on campus at Abstergo for like 6 months to a year. It was like kind of like contract work, I guess. And so she agreed because she needed something and was really excited and was given the whole spiel, except then she was kidnapped at gunpoint. So, and she was going to literally be silenced by Abstergo employees until Vidic stopped them. So Vidic might not be the worst person in the world.
He did save Lucy.
He did save Lucy's life. So, there's that. And then she's like, go to bed. But when you go to your room, you notice that someone's been messing with your towels.
You're like, hey, what the hell?
What the frick? And so you go check, and there's an access code hidden in those towels. So if you poke a little more around your room, you realize that someone's given you the code to your room lock. So you can now leave your room. If you so choose, then you can get an access key. Remember the emails from last week where Lucy was talking about Vidic always losing his access key? Well, guess who's got his access key now? Ya boy.
I didn't, because I didn't grab it the day before.
Oh, because you didn't access the email?
Yeah.
So now, okay, well, you don't get the access key then. Well, ya boy got it. And then, did you see the computer this time?
Yeah,
Did you access the computer this time?
Okay. I found it.
Okay, sweet. So, those other 3 emails are still there, along with 2 new emails. The first being Lucy inquiring into Layla's death. Because it turns out, remember last week, there was an email where Lucy had said Vidic said she was going to wind up like Layla. Well, now we found out Layla died, apparently through a suicide. But Lucy inquires into it, but is basically shot down. Basically like, I can't talk about this, it's confidential.
Yeah.
So then Lucy pushes again and is like, I don't understand. Like, it was a suicide. Why is there confidential things about it? Basically calling her a friend. So she also knew Layla. And so this kind of adds a little bit of further context to last week's email. Because, at first it's kind of insinuated that Layla was someone that Lucy might not have even known, maybe even the person who had the job before her. But now we know that this is apparently like a friend of Lucy's who she actively knew and knew was dead when Vidic made that comment. So it does kind of provide a little bit of a different context and tone to that original email from last week. But essentially at this point, after continuing to press, this Nancy lady that she's emailing starts CCing like upper management and like essentially ratting her out that she's asking questions to this man named Alan Rickon, as well as Vidic, who blows it off as a love affair gone wrong with someone named Newman.
I wonder who that is.
And so, I don't know, man. Get it? Because
Oh my god.
But, so it's blown off, but there's some weird stuff going on, especially talking about company policy being that bad things can happen to you if you do not, or if you leak any information.
Yeah.
And then there was an apparent suicide. Just a lot of stuff going on at Abstergo. You can also attempt to access Vidic's computer.
I got denied.
But you are denied. So, can't access Vidic's computer just yet. Maybe in the future. So, after a sleep with some nightly visions once more, you get up with Vidic super happy.
I thought you had the access key for some reason.
What do you mean?
I thought you said you had... Oh, I thought you were talking about his...
It's his pen.
Yeah, I thought you said you already had that.
Yeah, I do.
Well, I have it now. I thought you meant you got into his computer.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the access pen from the towel, from under the towels. Or no, you get the access code. And then the access pen is next to the computer by the Animus.
I just got a regular pen.
Well, it says access key. You take the pen, it's an access key. That's the pen that you grab right by the Animus computer.
How many keys are there?
Just the one. Well, the one that each of them have. There's Lucy's and Vidic's, and that was Vidic's. There's only one pen that you can grab.
I grabbed two.
There's two pens?
Yeah.
There's the access code, which is
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and then there's the pen.
So you wake up that next morning, right?
Yeah.
He's drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I walked up to him, and I went, and I snagged his pen. But I also grabbed a pen.
Oh.
But I also grabbed a pen that was on there that looked like just a regular blue pen to me.
Right.
The night before I grabbed a pen.
Okay. I forgot about that. I didn't do that in the morning. I forgot about grabbing the pen from Vidic. I wonder if I can do it when I go back before I get into the Animus. I might be able to. I'll give it a shot. But, yeah, I didn't even think about that, so.
Well, I mean, he was all weird. Like, he looked like he was being presented. Like, I was like, I wonder if I can interact with him or anything. He's all just like, drinking his coffee. It was like, so I went over there and I saw it. I just,
yeah, you can pickpocket a pen. I do remember that from playthroughs before, but I didn't do that this time. Yeah, you can swipe a pen from him. I completely forgot about that.
So, what is the other pen? Is that just a regular pen, or is that also an access key pen?
I'm pretty sure it's an access key pen.
So,
but you might be able to access different stuff with it. I don't remember.
Okay.
But anyway,
yeah.
Vidic's thrilled as Lucy has promised increased Animus performance, saying that they can go even longer now. And then goes into detail saying that Abstergo and its beneficiaries have essentially, they're responsible for all human advancement.
For the past, like, ever.
Forever. And which Desmond very clearly is like, yeah, right.
Yeah, okay, crazy.
And he says, yeah, because they are given gifts from, quote, the ones who came before.
I wonder what that means.
Very ominous. So I do like, we're getting into some deep stuff here pretty quickly, as, like I said earlier, we had a piece of Eden being mentioned, and now they're talking about the ones who came before. There's some interesting things being dropped here that we'll have to learn more about at some point. But yes. Overall, final thoughts about just kind of the sequence in general, how we're feeling about the full game thus far. We're almost halfway through at this point. Where are you at?
This sequence I liked a lot. I felt like it had a lot of lore, like a lot of story, a lot of like modern day like information you got there. I definitely enjoyed the ease in combat because I was getting tired of just throwing people around and trying to manage that.
Right.
Also, if you're playing on PC and you die all the time because you're jumping off things and you're landing right on top of the hay barrel thing, it's kind of dumb, but you got to go into your GeForce control panel. If you're using AMD, I don't know what to tell you. There's probably instructions online. Probably find them. But for all your NVIDIA users out there, go to the NVIDIA control panel, go to your 3D physics, and then you want to add Assassin's Creed as a program. And then just go down to like their little settings, and you just want to lock the FPS at 60. and turn on vertical sync, and then just apply it, and you won't have any more issues. Yeah.
So yeah, once again proving that the PC port of Assassin's Creed did not age well at all. Great game in general, and I do think in 2008 was when it came out. When it first released, it was great, but it just does not scale well at all.
Well, and the animation depended on the frames per second, so like your computers can run that game at like 200 frames now, but like if it's not running at 60, you die.
Yeah,
630 or 60 is what it had to be at, but I recommend 60 for smoothness.
Yeah, but you know, it's a fun time.
Yeah, once they got working, no more issues. Hopefully, the rest of this time there's no more issues. So
yeah, but to what you were saying earlier about just sort of getting into more lore and stuff. I mean, we've now entered the second act of the game essentially. This is where, you know, we've gone through all of the tutorial stuff. We know how this game works now, and so now it's starting to get into, okay, this is we're now getting to the peak of conflict. We're now approaching the main crux of the game, and kind of that twist and turns and things like that. This is where we're getting into the true meat of what this game has to offer, because we're now approaching the point where we have most of the tools available at our disposal, and now it's to the point of now we're just getting more challenge and being able to test off our skills and just sort of master the different aspects of the game. This is where it lets you really start to I guess what's the word, you start to step into that role of an assassin more accurately versus just kind of learning the ropes.
And you yourself feel like an assassin too, I feel like.
Yeah. And like I said, like the counter kill especially really helps like make the combat and everything flow better and feel more cinematic. And as you're getting introduced to more story instead of just more gameplay focused tutorial mechanics, it helps give it a more cinematic and complete feel to it, because now it's no longer needs to keep introducing concepts at every twist and turn. It kind of lets the game breathe a little bit, and because of that, it really opens up into something truly fun and special and enjoyable.
Become a master assassin.
Exactly. But that is gonna do it for this week's episode. Yeah. Next week is the biggest one yet. Next week is sequence 4. There's going to be 3 assassinations. We're going all 3 cities once more, unlocking new districts, new challenges, new people to face, new heads to be taken. Because heads are going to roll next week, guys. Stuff's going to go down. Information will be learned. But we'll have to talk about it then. But thank you guys for watching, listening, however you're consuming our podcast. It's on a lot of different services. Fun times. But I've been your host, Landon. Lucas, you got anything else you want to say before we get on out of here?
Nope.
No, he does not. And so we're going to get out of here. But thank you once more. We'll see you guys next week for sequence 4.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Hey, you said nothing else. So nothing else. But thank you. I get to do the assassinating this time. So as Lucas bleeds out in the corner, remember that everything is true and nothing is permitted. Wait, it's the opposite. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. You guys heard me right. Bye.